But that was it for the reforms on national level. I hope you got it somehow, I'm not sure. Now I would like to tell you something about the European reforms, but due to the fact that you all did this research and you already know all about the EU reforms, I take it brief so that you don't get bored. Let me start with the 2nd May 2010, when the European consent to the aid package for Greece. That means Greece got up to 80 billion euros from the Eurozone and up to 30 billion euros from the IMF. And then in 2011, they determined the 6-pack. That means that fiscal policy rules of the Stability and Growth Pact were reformed, and that there is, or let me say that there has to be, a better coordination of national policy. And in 2012, all EU members except Great Britain and the Czech Republic have to commit themselves to determine a debt limit like Germany. The maximum of the economic deficit is 0.5% of the GDP per year.
Okay, I'll continue with the reforms on the regional level. First, here in this picture you can see a map. As you can see on the arrow, it points on our federal states. It's the Rhine-Palatinate, one of 16 federal states in Germany. So, that you any idea which federal state I'm talking about? On the second picture, it's just only Rhine-Palatinate, and with the arrow, we pointed out now that's where our universities are. At first, I want to point out some facts about the economic situation in the Rhine-Palatinate. I'll explain later then the reactions of the Rhine-Palatinate provincial government for the global financial crisis. At first, our economy shrank in 2009 during the crisis, but actually in 2010, it returned to the level which had been before. So the export sector has grown in 2012 in the 3rd year in a row, except for 2009, of course. And actually, we are approximately 4 million inhabitants in the Rhine-Palatinate, and approximately 2 million people have work over the Rhine-Palatinate. This was the highest ever registered opposite in 2011. In 2012, we were just approximately 2 million. In 2011, there has been more employees. Okay, enough with facts. Let's turn to the reaction of our federal state government on the financial crisis. We've got the business activity support program 2. You heard that before on the national level. It's just another translation, but I think it's you know what it can mean. I'm sorry. Just to react to the crisis, the Rhine-Palatinate government suggested the Future Investment Act. With this Future Investment Act, the aim was to secure jobs, to support companies, and to invest sustainably. They had about approximately 850 million euros. 449 million euros were sponsored by the Federal Republic of Germany, and the rest was sponsored by the provincial government of Rhine-Palatinate, of course, communities as well, and some private agencies. The business activity support program includes a multitude of support programs. For example, the urban restoration, rural renewal, school construction, advanced training, communal infrastructure, and actually the investment in the sector of power efficiency, energy supply, communication technology, and so on. Just to point out an example from that, in our city, Landau, there has been a technical installation of the integrated coordinated center with information and communication techniques. I know it's kind of different, but it was for the fire department in Landau. And the investment volume was about 1.9 million euro. So actually, till now, till 2013, there have been over 2,500 programs being realized with this 859 million euro in Rhine-Palatinate. So the second reaction was the debt break. As you've heard about the debt break on the national level, it's of course a debt break for the regional level. It's similar to develop break on the national level. The aim was to balance the budget until 2020. That means we have to balance the budget till 2020, and after 2020, we should be able not to take new debts. We have to be able to reduce our old debts that our provincial government has. In my opinion, I don't even know if it's that quite achievable as they say it, but we'll see until 2020 how it will work with this debt break stuff. Okay, that's for the Germans regional level. So just point out the conclusions for the German reaction on the financial crisis. Actually, you can say Germany is not influenced in a negative way by the economic crisis like many other states. For the German government, the Euro crisis resulted from a lack of budget discipline, and it's not rooted in the failure of institutional design of the Eurozone. So we're still standing here for the Eurozone, of course, and we still stand behind the Eurozone, as everybody knows. I think when I say that, let's tell you an example of how this not being influenced. For me, as a citizen, as an ordinary citizen, I have the money I earn every month. I've got a little bit of money in my bank account for some reasons, when I use it, when I need it, but I don't have any real estate, I didn't speculate on some stock markets and stuff like that. So of course, for me, I really haven't been influenced by the financial crisis, because I have my job, I have my life as well, and actually I think it's quite a statement with a lot of German citizens. There have been citizens who have lost money, of course, on the real estate market, for example. But okay, that's the example for that. We have just a simple graphic to stat it out. On the right side, you see the development of the gross national product. Actually, not only in Germany, but in some European countries. And as you can see on the red line, on the bottom, excuse me, on the top, that's our gross national product has raised up. Actually, okay, it shrank during the time, but actually, yeah, it's quite a thing. And on the left side, you see how our export sector has grown until we have the euro. So from 2000 for example. Okay. Thank you for the attention.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, do you have any questions to these presentations? Any questions? I think here the Landau will be ready to answer them, yes? No questions?
It was clear.
It was all clear.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. So, thank you very much. Okay, so the next group presenting will be the representatives of Slovakia.
everyone. We represent the University Baden-Württemberg from Cluj-Napoca, Romania. My colleagues Alex, Anna, and Juliana. So, our country called Romania. We will start with the structure of our presentation. We'll start with international level. After that, with national level, and of course, a case study about Cluj-Napoca, the city we came from. So, I'll present a small timeline of our economic situation starting from 2007 till 2012. Romania is the second largest country, and it's one of the most important trading countries. And as well, it's the 11th largest economy in the European Union by total nominal GDP, and the 8th largest based on purchasing power parity, and is one of the fastest growing markets. In recent history, with consistent annual GDP growth rates by 6%. The economic crisis has stagnation, decrease, and upon economic activity, and socio-economic crisis began in the 1990s, and it continues in present, being emphasized by international market crisis. Crisis turnover for Romania is possible only by operating the morals to all the domains, by unlocking the functional procedures of financial economic processes, and by showing a performer manager for all levels. I'll start with 2007-2008. Romania's economy had an average annual increase of 6.8%. Most of the growth was generated by investment made in sectors of non-marketable, like constructions. Marketable, as I guess you all know about our cars, Dacia. I hope you heard about them. And by consumption as well. Romanians first felt the effect of economic crisis in the last quarter of 2008. Industrial production and the domestic consumption plummeted, and the capital market has serious problems. So I started from here. March 2009, Romania signed an agreement with IMF for 12.96 billion euros. The financial package summed aid from European Union and World Bank, which was amounted like 19.95 billion euros. 2010 now. 2010 saw austerity measures being implemented and considered to be peak of a crisis. So 2010 is the peak. 2011. 2011 saw the crisis drag out, and the reality of measures implemented in 2010 take a more concrete shape. 2012. The spotlight was on a major political crisis. The political crisis was caused by a draft bill which was meant to reform the health section. This health section and this reform caused negative reaction by our society, and it concluded with serious strikes in most important cities of Romania. So, these presentations show an overview of Romania's response to the economic crisis by looking at all the strategies, policies, and reforms that were implemented at the local, national, and international level. Thank you.
Okay, so I will speak about the mechanisms that were set by the European Union in order to help the countries that were affected by the crisis. One of the first short-term priorities was to create the European Financial Stabilization System, which helped the countries which were the most affected by the crisis, such as Greece and Spain. It was created in 2010. Another important reform that was made by the EU was creating a supervisory mechanism in order to increase transparency and accountability, because it had been stressed by the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. European Union created the single stability mechanism, where the European Central Bank and the national supervisors will closely coordinate the oversight of the banking institutions in the euro area, as well as in the non-euro area countries that are participating in the mechanism. Once the single stability mechanism will be functional, the European stability mechanism will be able to directly capitalize the euro area in case of a lack of liquidities. And in order to strengthen the policy cooperation, the Council and the European Parliament adopted a set of fiscal legislation which was called the Six-Pack and was focused on monitoring the member states and in compliance with the agreed targets for their budget deficits. I will explain briefly the European Stability Mechanism, which was perhaps the most important innovation in the Eurozone, and it is designed to manage future sovereign debt crises when the current rescue fund will run out, and it will provide credit and it's providing credit and guarantees to the Eurozone governments. But we have to remark that it cannot provide liquidities rapidly, and when the overall credit will run out, the Eurozone will continue to lack means to handle panic and speculation in the markets. The state aid, which is Commission guidelines on regional aid, this perhaps is affecting Romania the most because, as you know, we are not having a really good percentage of European funds absorption. And this state aid is setting the rules under which member states can grant state aid companies to support investments in new production facilities in the less advantaged regions of the Europe, or to extend or modernize the existing facilities. And recently, the European Commission had adopted guidelines on how member states can grant investment in order to support the development of the disadvantaged region. Between 2014 and 2020, and these guidelines are part of a broader strategy to modernize state aid control, which aims at fostering growth in the single market, improving competitiveness, and over the period of 2007 to 2011, the regional aid expenditure represented 0.11% of the EU GDP, and during this period, 85% of the regional aid was spent in the less developed region, where the GDP was below 75% of the EU average.
Okay. Well, we're now moving on to the national level. It will take a bit longer because in Romania, Romania was a bit more affected by the crisis. So, I'll just outline the main changes that have happened from 2009 until 2011. In 2009, there was an increase in the state social security contributions payable by employees and employers. What this meant is that it was getting more expensive to hire someone, and also that the employees had to give more money to the budget. Well, this was quite fine for the budget, but the problem was that this sort of change brought about under the table contracts, as in you had one contract with the employer. He said that he was giving you this much on paper, and he also gave you something by the side, because it was the state was asking for too much from the employers. In the 2010-2011 period, we had the most unpopular measure taken. From the 1st of July, so in 1st of July 2010, our VAT raised from 19 to 24%, and we all know that the maximum limit is to 25%. So Romania actually could only have taken it 1% higher. It was a very unpopular measure. Also, there was an increase in tax rate from 10 to 16% on dividends. So the companies that would have liked to invest their profits or their dividends further could not, because they had to give an additional 6% to the state. There was also an increase in local taxes, increase in taxes for cars, and increase in excise on diesel. Let me tell you a bit on a broader picture of these changes was that there was a 25% salary cut, especially for employees working in the public sector. 200,000 special pensions were reevaluated, and all these the crisis led to Romania borrowing, getting a loan from the IMF, which was only 5% interest rate, which had only a 5% interest rate at the beginning, but it rose to 7% because of political instability in 2012. Also, Romania has the lowest rate of absorption of the European funds, and here is a table, if it will just work. Yes. And you see there is this table here, and Romania is right there on the 27th place. We have an absorption rate of 26.2, the lowest, unfortunately. The crisis also affected the SMEs, so the small and medium enterprises in Romania. In 2009, only 5% of our small and medium enterprises have grown. 23% declared that they haven't grown at all. 70% said that their products and their services have dropped, and 15% filed for bankruptcy. In 2010, 78,000 jobs were terminated. We were the champions in terminating jobs in Europe. Out of these, about 60,000, so think about it in terms of a small city, 16,000 jobs were government positions, so a small town was unemployed. The new labor code was passed in March 2011. This labor code actually made it more easier for employers to terminate contracts, and it also made it more easier for employers to employ people on short period contracts, so not an indefinite, but short time. And the structural reform in the public sector caused 67 hospitals to be shut because of costs. If the effects were only economic, we could have dealt with that, but we had also some political problems. So let me just take you shortly through the political crisis in Romania. So in 2009, for the first time since Romania came out of the communist period, our government fell, for the first time ever. The Boc administration has resisted until 2009, has survived 10 no-confidence votes. So in 2009, our government fell. But the Boc government, because of certain political maneuvers, came into place again. In winter 2012, we have massive protests sparked by the resignation of the Undersecretary of State of Health. Well, this is a bit more complicated, but I'll come to that again. In February 2012, the Boc government resigned en masse. So, again, our government fell. What happened? Well, they wanted to change something in the public health system, and they attacked SMURD. SMURD is the emergency mobile service in Romania. It's publicly owned. It has been established by Raed Arafat, a Palestinian nationalized Romanian, which has been working in the emergency service from the age of 14. And it was one of the things that actually worked and that Romanians had respect for. So, okay, you take away our jobs, okay, you make salary cuts, okay, but you're attacking our health system, you're attacking a thing that works. And the Undersecretary for Health resigned because he was on a live television show. He was on a, yeah. So this is Prime Sescu and this is Raida Rapat. And this picture is from, well, they were on Raida Rapat, our Undersecretary State for Health, was on a talk show and he was talking about all the things that are bad with the new health bill that was put up for public debate. And our president went online, live during that show, and there was a small discussion, and at the end of it, he said, the president said that, well, if the state, the Minister for Health and his Undersecretary can't agree on something, then this was legal. And Raida Rapat resigned the next day. So our Undersecretary of State resigned the next day, and that sparked huge protests around the country. So in the local media, this was, so the fund was small leaves, and people took to the streets. It was, if you remember, it was a horrible winter in 2012. There was below 0 temperatures, but, well, if this computer would work, I could be able to show you. Yes. So we have a lot of protests. And not only, you know, young people, but also old. Because all knew that our mobile emergency system worked. It didn't need to change. That was the only thing that didn't need to be changed. So in 2012, and that's why in February 2012, the government resigned en masse. Because they couldn't take the pressure of an economical crisis and also now civil unrest because of the bills they were planning on passing. So then we had another government, a technocratic government, from February till April 2012, which also fell in April because of no confidence vote. So we were like, our government fell in February, and then we were starting to get used to the fact we have a new government, and in April it fell again. And from May to present, it's the Ponta government, so it's at the second mandate. But this has not been smooth sailing because in July 2012 we had some political turmoil, and my colleague will talk about our constitutional crisis from July 2012.
In 2011, we faced a constitutional crisis between our President Traian Băsescu and the Prime Minister Victor Ponta. So this crisis actually began in June 2012 because we were fighting who will represent Romania at the European Council. The very first conflict began in June 2012, and it was announced the bankruptcy of a state-owned company, Hidroelectrica. The Ponta wanted to show the mistake made by letting all the governments to buy cheap energy from this old company, Hidroelectrica. Parallel to this, the left-leaning Premier Ponta was accused of plagiarism. It was discovered that his PhD thesis was copied in 2003. So can you imagine Social Democratic Party, he represents the Social Democratic Party, and he's the Premier of Romania, and he has a plagiarized PhD dissertation thesis. So you can imagine what reactions had the society. Romanian President Traian Băsescu was suspended by Parliament because Ponta wanted to rebel somehow, and he was suspended with 256 votes in favor and 114 against, and of course we have 2 abstentions. President Traian Băsescu was waiting until July 29, 2012 referendum to see whether he could be impeached. However, the following pressure from Brussels made Ponta somehow reinstated the referendum rules, which facilitated the return to Băsescu at the Cotroceni Palace. Okay, so Constitutional Court decided on 21st of August, but 29th of July, Romanian presidential impeachment referendum was invalid, and Traian Băsescu returned to Palace Cotroceni. According to official sources, the decision was taken by 6 votes to 3. Shortly after this decision, Foundation of Defense of Citizens Against State Abuses sued the Romanian state at European Court of Human Rights for invalidation of the referendum. The Romanian constitution specifies in Article 95-96 that in order to impeach a president from to impeach a president from his responsibilities, he must commit grave violations of the Constitution, which is the constitutional standard for impeachment. But they actually proved that President Traian Băsescu didn't make any grave violation upon our Constitution. So they didn't give rights to Ponta to make this change in our society. However, Ponta didn't want to lose, and he prepared a 17-page report about all the grave violations that committed Traian Băsescu. Okay, so now the international reaction about this constitutional crisis. So the European Commission had requested Prime Minister Ponta to travel to Brussels, where he was publicly accused of undermining the rule of law and democracy. Commission President José Manuel Barroso said that he was shaking their trust. Can you imagine after this constitutional crisis, somehow they affected the image of Romania in front of European leaders. The entire situation led to economic instability. Reference rate euro announced on July 23rd by the National Bank of Romania that reached a new record high of 4.64 units, and the official rate of the dollar struck a new record and rose like 3.79 lei dollar. Political infighting in the summer of 2012 was a big mess, because actually it didn't prove anything by the government Ponta, but at least showed our weakness towards European leaders. This crisis ended on 12 December 2012. Băsescu and Ponta signed an agreement of institutional cohabitation, effectively ending this crisis. So actually it was from July 2012 till December 2012. It lasts long. And in conclusion, I would tell you that economic crisis took the country already being and dealing with structural and financial problems. So crisis can make people react in all kinds of manners. We have riots, as you saw, some strikes. So, you want to add something? Yes, we have to. Oh, okay, we have our
At the local level, we focused on Cluj-Napoca for our case study. Cluj-Napoca was and is an attractive point for investments. We have BPO, business process outsourcing, especially powerful in Cluj-Napoca. The IT sector, we have an IT cluster made up of 32 firms in IT and government institutions. Some say there's a new Silicon Valley being constructed in the IT sector in Cluj-Napoca, but that's to be seen. Anyways, it's serving as Technopolis. Cluj-Napoca has potential for the processing industry and strong position for the manufacturing industry. So, what happened after the crisis struck? There were problems in the industry sector. About 16,000 workers were laid off, and I think the biggest shock was when Nokia decided to relocate its factory. And about 2,000 people were laid off from that particular firm. Cluj-Napoca is a large and important shoe manufacturer in Romania, and it's on the brink of bankruptcy. It has strong tradition in Cluj-Napoca. Napolact is a dairy producing company milk and cheese and all that. And it was bought by a Dutch company, and now there are rumors and news that they want to relocate the company, which also has a strong tradition in Cluj-Napoca. And other large companies have already relocated. We had Bechtel, ING, and another very known Romanian beer producing company. But let me just. So, Clujana, Ursus and Napolagt are. No. Yeah, so Clujana went away. No, Clujana is not in the brink of bankruptcy. Ursus moved, and Napolagt maybe, here, it may be gone. But the other logos that you see are very strong firms, especially in this local level. So BT is a bank, Banca Transilvania, Farmec is a cosmetics company, and they are still strong in this particular region. So those were the effects on the industry sector. The economic crisis also affected small entrepreneurs in Cluj-Napoca. More than 3,000 businesses have been lost in the city of Cluj-Napoca, or in the, let's say, the metropolitan area that doesn't have metropolitan area. Well, in the cities, right, in the suburbs, yeah. The number of employees decreased by 20,000. Unemployment rate reached almost 5%. But we're done talking about the crisis, and now I will tell you what changes were made by local administrations. So until this year, until 2012, 2013, 2012, nothing was moving in the construction area, because it was the hardest hit. And now, this year, they resume constructions on the second largest office space in Cluj-Napoca. So things are beginning to move again. Also, a local ordinance whose goal is to bring 20 million lei into the local budget has been given. Well, this is a bit complicated because the local council said that they won't charge people for the late payment of their debt. But the good payers that have paid on time are, well, they're a bit, let's say, confused by this measure because it's not fair. Also, the local government has accessed the regional operation program and has built an industrial park and a digital mapping company. And also, we can talk about the Bosch investment, which was also attracted using, through the measures of our local administration. They have taken, I think they have built two manufacturing companies, and one is in the former place of Nokia. So, yeah, things are starting to look good. And we have a movie as well.
It's a small movie about our city, Cluj-Napoca. You'll see.
Părăște sonorul.
Located in the heart of Transylvania, Cluj-Napoca is the epicenter of culture and finance in Western Romania. Cluj's constant historical connection to Western Europe shaped its current socio-economic environment. Cluj is a European city. You can see it in the architecture, you can see it in the
economic crisis affected Romania when Romania was already dealing with some financial problems. And we can say that we are somewhere in the middle of the most affected countries. Prices rising, but the salaries are still the same. We don't absorb all the fundings, the European fundings. And we can say that we need to take into account that all the reforms implemented in Romania, they don't have the immediate effect, the effects in time. So, however, mistakes are easy to point out. For instance, the austerity measures had negative reactions. We saw how many strikes we had in December 2012, also the constitutional crisis and so on. The fiscal measures produced mixed results, and in fact it's too early to be sure of their effectiveness. But the fiscal reports, along with the budgetary reorganization, seem to have positive reforms so far. So somehow we are moving. So what we need to do is to set our goals again, to set the necessary tools in order to fight against this economic crisis. So we hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Everyone has some questions. You are shy. My questions on the fiscal policy of the government. Because from your presentation, so that most private sector, especially in goods, as usual, have collapsed. So how do we reconcile the positive aspect? If the fiscal policy has been very effective, then why this huge loss in the private business sector?
Oh, well, the fiscal part, when we talk about fiscal reorganization, we talk about taxes mostly. So there have been a rise in taxes and also a decrease in taxes, which have helped the budget and the reorganization of the budget, and how the budget functions, and how our internal debt and our external debt is managed. But the entrepreneurs, well, how should I say this? There were the thing is, when people are laid off, it's not, they were laid off mostly from government positions. So the fiscal measures are not, you have fiscal measures and then you have non-fiscal measures. So the fiscal measures work. But the non-fiscal measures were a reorganization of, how should I say this? Of the administration sector. Because there were many people in the government that hold positions, for instance. And yes, indeed, the main jobs that were lost were in government, but yes, we have some problems on the local level with organizations. And the government did hit hard in small and medium enterprises, but other things are working. For instance,
also the private company is working because the government set the VAT tax from 19% to 12%.
yeah.
That was a hard hit for the private companies also.
It's working because there were problems before, because it wasn't organized. And on the long term, they're hoping that our debt will go down because of these measures. So I don't know if I answered the question.
My second question is on the social benefits.
Yes.
I think you better address government is helping the social benefit.
I didn't understand.
I'm saying that your report shows that at least government policy has helped the social benefit, especially when it comes to pension. But I also realized that government policy also led to the reduction in social benefit by almost about 15%. So,
Yes, that's why was that slide was moved, because social benefits, they don't give so much benefits to the society, even for minorities as well. So this is a big problem for me.
What is the problem with social benefits? I understand. I didn't quite understand your question. So there was, yeah, the pensions were reevaluated, and if you remember, there was a whole scandal because the pensions were sought after, but also the civil servants' pensions, which are very, very high, were reevaluated. So that's the thing with the pensions and social benefits. Well, social benefits actually. This year in 2013, the percent that goes to your private fund for pensions has rose, which is a good thing, from 3.5% to 4%. So things are constantly changing. What is the problem with social benefits?
even if it's rose by 3.5%,
No, from 3.5 to 4.
4%,
Yeah.
and government also putting tax on set benefit. Is it not like coming back to square one, or maybe?
But they didn't put tax on the benefits. No, they rose the benefit when for employers and employees. They rose, so there was the tax or not the benefits for employers and employees. For the yes.
I think Daniel is hinting to the fact that even though the Constitutional Court decided that reduction of 15% of the pensions is unconstitutional, the government also taxed for healthcare insurance the pension for a certain period of time. So it was
Yes, that happened, and
the
yes,
pensions that were above 1,000 lei were taxed for healthcare insurance, extra tax for healthcare insurance, even though they were not reduced with 15%. So it was the same.
yes, but that has sorted itself out, hasn't it? Because didn't you say that the Constitutional Court decided it was unconstitutional? And yes, for a small period of time, they taxed a certain number of pensions. Those people are not getting their money back, but on the other hand, it has sorted itself out, and we haven't yet nationalized our pension funds like in Hungary. So things are still okay, from my point of view. Other questions? Oh, yeah.
Though I'm quite skeptical about the private system, private pension system in Romania, but it's personal skepticism. My question refers actually to the fact that the IMF called for the liberalization of the electricity service. So, as a result, large investors such as Mittal in Galaxia threatened diplomatically that he will leave Galaxia and the enterprise factory there if Romania would liberalize the electricity service. How would this reconcile? Because we're facing an IMF, a sovereign-imposed measure on Romania, which would lead to the leaving of great companies from the Romanian territory and their contribution to the Romanian budget. How would this reconcile? How would you see, after finishing the report on Romania, how would you see the decision makers reconcile such pressures? Because we're facing double pressures.
Yes, there are pressures, but well, nobody is nobody is pressuring you to do something you do not want. So there are pressures from the EU. Yes, there are. But it's up to Romania, and it's a sovereignty decision if we want to privatize our electrical system or our electricity. We have a large log in this particular sector, if you agree with me, I mean, we were supposed to privatize our public transportation system, right? CFR and Tarom, we're still lagging behind on that. And now the electricity system. So the pressures will sort themselves out. Because if you were reading the news, then you know that we have started to privatize CFR, and there is already a private line in Romania besides the national-owned CFR, and Romania has also we have also started attracting funds to better enhance our infrastructure. So it just needs time. How are we going to deal with these pressures? We need to take it step by step, because we can't, even our decision makers, our policy makers can't start making all the decisions in all the directions for all the problems. So you have to take it step by step. So with the electricity, I think it's quite okay. It was just a threat. I mean, they threatened, but they haven't left yet. So other companies have already left, and we dealt with it, right?
We did not liberalize the electricity services yet. This is the reason why they didn't left yet.
Yes.
If the electricity service would be liberalized, I think they would.
I'm sorry. What exactly are you saying? There's a firm in Romania, right, that will leave if the electricity sector is liberalized. And the liberalization of electricity in Romania, wouldn't that open up our country to other investors? I mean, EON Gas just moved we have EON Gas, but he just moved its business center to Cluj. So we have the gas and the business center. So I don't think it's such a bad place to put your investments. Place your investments.
So what you're saying is what we lose in one direction.
This is all hypothetical, because you're saying if we privatize, if he leaves, maybe the government will make him an offer he can't refuse and he'll stay. There are a lot of ifs here. So, and before we get to the electricity, we have to think about, is there a problem? No? Okay. We have to think about the other areas in which the government has promised to privatize, right? Because they're taking it step by step. You can't privatize like I don't know, 5 major branches of the Romanian infrastructure at the same time, can you? Infrastructure and electricity and I don't know. Have I not answered your question? Wasn't I clear? Okay. Any other questions? Yes. It's okay.
So I've seen in your presentation that there is a lot of investment going on in Cluj. How does this impact on the unemployment rate? And if you find students, that it's easier to find a job there, or how?
One of the measures taken that were not placed at the national level were grants for young people, and somehow making the bills or the laws more easy for people to get a job. For instance, one of the laws says that companies have a certain discount on the tax they have to pay if they hire young people in Romania. And that's a good part. In Cluj, in particular, it's very easy to get a job if you're from the IT sector. Because there is a cluster IT, as I have mentioned, and students from the technical university usually, I have a lot of friends, and this is also in statistics, usually get a job from the second or their third year of being in faculty, and so their faculty is like a four-year faculty, and they can work part-time, and they have all sorts of benefits. For instance, the majority of the firms are foreign, and they say to the IT guys, like, you can come whenever you want, you have to stay like 4 or 8 hours, but you do your job. So they can go at 9 a.m. at work, at 10 a.m., at 12 a.m., but it's only for the IT sector.
And also the people working in IT are not, their salaries are not, they're not taxed. So it's the only sector, it's a minor thing. So in IT, you can easily get a job. And also we have a lot of multinational companies in Cluj, and this is the reality. You can get a job if you know a foreign language. So the marketplace, if you try really hard and go to a lot of interviews, you'll get a job, but not everybody tries so hard. And they all ask for experience, which is a bit high, study experience, study work. But because of this crisis and because there are not so many jobs, so this is a downside. Yeah, there are not so many jobs in all the sectors. Like in the government, the jobs have been frozen since 2008, 2009, and in the medical sector as well. People move towards multinational companies because they give you the training. And for instance, if you have finished humanities, you can go work for a financial company if you know the language, because they give you a good training. If you can handle it or not, well, that depends on you. And people usually talk about multinational companies as a starting point, as a jumping board. So even if you don't get a job in the area that you major in, you go to a multinational company, you stay a year or two, and then maybe you can find, with the experience from a multinational company, a place in the domain you want. So that's the situation in Cluj. But the IT people are very happy. The companies like Genpact, Office Depot, if you don't get a job, they offer you an internship for 3 months, something like that. Yeah, so if you benefit from a job, you benefit from an internship in order to gain some experience.
Okay, have I answered your question? Any other questions?
Okay. Any more questions? No? So now the next presentation, Romania's University. After this presentation, we'll make a 10-minute break. Yes? Okay, before we start, maybe I would just have one favor to ask you. If you could use the last door over there, because this door and this door makes a lot of noise. Just the last one. Okay? Thank you. The floor is yours.
So first we will introduce you the political background, because it's very important how the government's changed in times of crisis, and then we'll give you a short description of the most important reforms that were introduced during this time from 2009. Yes. In the time before crisis, from 2006 until 2010, we had a coalition government which consisted of 3 parties, and it was led by the Social Democratic Party SMER, led by Robert Fico. The 2 parties that were governing with him were the Slovak National Party and the Movement for Democratic Slovakia, led by Vladimir Mečiar, who we already spoke about. In 2010, there were parliamentary elections which were basically won by SMER Social Democrats, but they didn't have enough seats in the parliament to form the majority. So there was a coalition government formed led by the Slovak Democratic Christian Union led by Iveta Radičová. And as you can see on the picture, this government was actually considered to bring some change. And the other three parties in the government were Freedom and Solidarity led by Katsulik, and Christian Democratic Movement led by Jan Figel, and the last one was the Party of Cooperation between Slovaks and Hungarians called Most. However, this government didn't last very long because in 2011, in October, the vote about the European Stabilization Mechanism was by connected with the vote of confidence. However, they didn't have the coalition partners didn't agree with this, so they didn't support this vote in the parliament, and Iveta Radičová's government failed in the vote of confidence. Therefore, we had new parliamentary elections in 2012. And these elections were won by Robert Fico again, who got the majority in the parliament. So now it is very important to know that any legislation that is introduced by the government is basically passed because they have the majority in the parliament. And also very important fact that I have mentioned in the beginning is that in 2009 we joined the Eurozone, so now we can pay the euros as in Slovakia, and this is also a very important factor that influenced our conditions in the times of crisis.
So we will not be speaking about governmental or central government level, but we will be speaking also about the regional level. And on the regional level, there was this election in 2009. Before 2009, the president or chairman of Bratislava self-governing region was this gentleman. His name is Vladimír Bajan, and he had the support, was independent with the support of mostly leftist parties. After 2009, change came. The new president is, since 2009 till today, Prešo, and nowadays he's also the chairman or president of probably the most important rightist party in Slovakia, Slovak Democratic and Christian Movement. Also, these elections were untypical for Slovakia because self-governing region had a chairman and it also has its own parliament. And into these elections, two big coalitions competed for the chairs in the parliament, and the center-right coalition won. So now Bratislava self-governing region is led by rightist chairman and rightist parliament.
Yes, now, what is very important, in 2008, when it was still the government of Robert Fico, the Prime Minister said that only an idiot can write on the front pages hundreds of people are losing their jobs because of the global crisis. So this basically tells us something about the approach of the first government of Robert Fico about his approach to the crisis, because their first strategy was to ignore the crisis.
The same was with Vladimír Bajan on the regional.
So as you can see, he was not that wrong in 2008 because this was the lowest unemployment rate. But since 2008, we can see a very sharp increase in unemployment, which actually is at its peak now. So in 2013, we have the unemployment rate as 14.5%, which is about 400,000 people.
their job. And so now I will turn to the reforms on the governmental level. We chose only the most important reforms that influence many institutions. So the first one is that the government introduced a bill that should increase transparency in provision subsidies. This was a reform of the government of Petra Ničova because, well, the government of Robert Fico was well known because of not transparent provision of subsidies. So they basically introduced a law according to which every public provision of subsidy has to be published on the internet. So people actually can see where the money from the budget goes. So how the government spends the money. And also it's many times it gives us it gives the government some feedback from the people. If they don't agree with something, they just can still make some initiative, which is, I think, quite often used. The next reform was the restoration of trust in judiciary and fight against corruption. It means basically that the selection of judges should be more transparent. The candidates should have equal rights or should be equally treated when it comes to the election of judges and the election of chairs of the judicial I don't know how to say it. Judicial. Well, yeah. So when the judges sit together, so the chairs of these should be also selected more transparently. And but this didn't bring the most important change because the selection of or the election of the general prosecutor is still connected with many problems. So it's been 2 years, 1 year, 1.5 years, almost 2 years, that the government was not able to actually elect a new general prosecutor, which is a very important person in the judiciary system. The next reform was affecting mostly the business environment. This reform wanted a more free business environment, so employees should have better conditions to employ somebody, but also to fire somebody. And also there was this introduction of new labor code. So people have now really different ways how to get employed. It should be much easier for businesses to employ people. And this is like one of the most important reforms, I think.
But it is important to note that the labor code was enacted by government of Radičova, liberal labor code, and one of the first reforms of new government of Robert Fico, like this one, again changed the labor code to more socialist.
Yeah. And the next reform was the reform of the state administration. It meant that the spending on the regional level should decrease. So basically, we in Slovakia, the government reduced some of the administration offices. We don't have anymore the higher regional level. So it was in some of the constituencies, they basically just canceled some offices there. So to reduce some of the expenditures on the regional level. And however, this reform was only introduced in 2012, so its implementation is still in progress. And the last reform that I would like to talk about is the reform of the tax system. Many taxes were increased, for example, the VAT, the income tax, and also some tax payments. What was the most radical change is, for example, if students
are employed and they earn more than 150 euros, they have to also pay taxes. Before that, students were, they didn't pay taxes at all. It didn't matter how much money they actually earned. So now it is more difficult for the employers to employ students because they also have to pay for them.
So now a little bit about Bratislava self-governing region. First of all, it is not so easy to talk about reforms on a regional level in Slovakia because, of course, regional self-government doesn't have so many efficient tools to fight crisis. But there are some important things that I would like to mention. Okay. So first of all, first thing that new self-government in Bratislava had to deal with after 2009 were some serious budgeting problems. Because Bratislava self-governing region had this large debt and it had to face some serious income outages because self-governing regions are mostly financed by the income tax share. And as the crisis came into Slovakia, less people had jobs, less people paid taxes, the general income tax lowered. So of course, self-governing regions also get lower share of this source of finances. So how did they cope with it? First of all, there were some serious expense cuts. The self-governing regions immediately stopped a few intransparent projects. At least they were talked about as intransparent, but because those were the projects that previous self-government started, so the new self-government said, okay, this is transparent, we are not giving any more money for this. E.g. it was the project of the new arena in Bratislava. And what else could they do? Well, as I said, the new chairman of Bratislava self-governing region, it was this big guy named Prešov, who is like important figure in the probably most important center-right party in Slovakia. By that time he was vice-president of the party. And in Bratislava self-governing regions, they actually tried some of the reforms, and when they seen that it works in self-governing regions, they implemented it on a central level as well. So this was the case with the transparency. They had this big project of open self-government, and it was basically what Veronika talked about. Online publication of contracts and invoices, new tendering system, public auctions, and stuff like this. The point was that they believed that when they increase transparency, it will help them to lower the expenses of region. So the question is if these reforms we have been talking about were somehow effective. So on on a central level, like Slovakia, this graph shows us the real GDP growth rates since 2011 till 2013. 2013 is of course just a forecast, and it is sorted by this 2013 forecast. As you can see, Slovakia is between Poland and Bulgaria here. So it's not standing that bad, truly.
Yeah, and also the reforms that were introduced by Robert Fico, his government, which was elected in 2012, we actually cannot say for sure how they're going to turn out, but as also The Economist wrote in November 2012, central-left social democratic government will focus on budget balancing and reform of healthcare, taxes and pensions, accompanied by those of privatization. And we expect to bring the fiscal deficit within the Maastricht limit of 2%. And so as you can see, the euro area is now supposed to be somewhere closely above the Maastricht limit, and Slovakia should actually expand this much more.
This is the more optimistic, these were the
Yeah,
more optimistic graphs. Of course, we have been talking about unemployment, which is really high right now in Slovakia. So about the region, self-governing region, well, the government of self-governing region, Bratislava self-governing region, actually managed to lower the debt of the region. This graph shows us that in 2009 the debt service was actually lower than it is now. But the self-governing region had this huge so-called hidden debt. It's about unsettled liabilities. So they actually, the reforms and actions they took, they managed to fight effectively the debt of the region. Because the debt service is actually higher than it was in 2009, but there are also non-unsettled liabilities. And also, Bratislava region had the lowest, I haven't said this before, I wanted to say that the debt is also the lowest of all the self-governing regions in Slovakia. So all the self-governing regions, there are 8 in Slovakia, have higher debts than this one. Also, the Bratislava region, the first one, has the lowest unemployment in Slovakia. But as you can see, the unemployment in Bratislava region used to be much lower. The graph actually goes pretty much like the graph of the whole Slovakia, so it went quite higher between 2009 and 2010-11. But in Slovakia, since 2011, there was also increase in unemployment, but in Bratislava it's decreasing slowly. So, conclusions. As we have said, the dominant approach nowadays in Slovakia, both on central government and on a regional level, how to fight this crisis is to bring more austerity, cut down expenses and increase incomes. Well, 2 central governments we have been talking about enacted these most important reforms. It was increasing of transparency generally and increasing of transparency in state subsidies, restoration of trust in judiciary and fighting corruption. They changed the business environment and they formed the state administration, increased taxes. Well, probably the only point where these 2 governments didn't agree on how to fight this crisis is the business environment. Because as we said, the Radičová centre-right government, they enacted this new labor code that was really, really liberal, and probably one of the first reforms of the Smer government was that they enacted new labor code that is not so liberal. And main reforms by local Bratislava self-government, well, they had to make very conservative budgeting and they managed to cut down expenses mainly by stopping different investment projects and by this project of open self-government. To the question whether these reforms were or were not effective, well, the effects are questionable. As we have shown you, the economic performance can be seen positively, but on the other hand, we have still quite huge debts and unemployment rate. So, thank connection.
Thank you very much. So now we'll have a 10-minute break. So we'll start at 11:10, and then we'll have the Croatian, Belgian, Czech, and one more Romanian point of view. Thank you.